Welcome to Leadership Lessons from the Seat of the CEO. I have had the pleasure of speaking to Peder from Accredit Solutions. Peder is the CEO of an organization that is in very much its scaling and building phase globally. A team that are across a number of countries covering major sporting events around the world. And Peder is guiding as co-founder and CEO the organization through the journey of private equity funding and getting that backing to take the organization into its next chapter. But in particular, the part that I loved about our conversation is he's really thinking about the culture of how does he create an environment where people can be their whole, full, authentic selves, where their hearts and their souls can be alive and energized. And in his words, this is where the magic happens. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Peder, welcome.
Thanks, Tess.
Thank you very much for spending time with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you creating the space, especially given I know that it's an incredibly busy role and an incredibly busy time. So a special thank you, not least because first time around, I know that you couldn't make the invitation because of COVID. So it's still circulating. And we might end up talking about COVID as part of our conversation. So let's just acknowledge it's in the field of your organization. So welcome.
Thank you.
Say a little bit for context around the organization that you are in the CEO seat with, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So I'm co-founder and CEO of Accredit Solutions. And Accredit Solutions, we provide accreditation and credentialing software for the workforce for major sporting events, leagues, teams, and secure facilities around the world. So we've got a lot of kind of big, kind of major global brands and sports teams and leagues and stadiums running our software. We're headquartered here in London. We've got offices in the US. We've got offices in Australia. So the space that we're in for the major events and major sporting events,
Yes.
The divisions of national lines don't really come in so much. So it's a global business.
And how long has the business been running?
So we incorporated in 2017. It was spun out of a previous business that I had that was kind of building bespoke kind of registration platforms, and we kind of saw an opportunity to provide the industry that we're currently in with some really strong technology to kind of enhance their security and operational efficiencies.
And one of the things that we've spoken about, I'm going to dive straight in here in terms of the learning of moving an organization through its various phases. One of the things that we've spoken briefly about is how do you stay in your seat of CEO and stay with a sense of appropriate control, despite the fact that people are dispersed around the world. How are you finding that and what's been challenging around that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a challenge, right? I mean, more so, I think, having time zones all around the world and trying to get people together. If you take Australia right now, kind of we're on kind of Melbourne based, and that's 11 hours time difference right now. It took a couple of weeks and shifts to 9, which is very, very helpful. But that element of communication is obviously something you need to consciously work on. I do think that, the dreaded COVID word, but COVID did give the world the tools to be able to, kind of remotely work from home and work from different countries and wherever home might be. The implementation of those tools is really key as well. But look, it's a challenge. It's we'd all love to be able to be looking at all of our colleagues and co-workers face to face, on a daily basis. But it's difficult when you've got people in all the different around the world. And there's also been transitions within kind of the structure of kind of the team and where the team is globally.
Yes.
There's been transitions on what the board looks like as well. So that's a constantly evolving task.
Indeed. And the essence of this podcast series is about unpacking the layers a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I may, I'm gonna go there. So managing these transitions, co-founder, CEO, and private equity backed. What's been the biggest learning that you've had as you've moved through those stages?
Wow. What day is it? No, just constant learning, right? So adaptability is totally key, right? You've always got to be curious. You've always got to be, hungry to learn the next thing. to take that seriously as well, you do need to understand what you're good at, what you're bad at.
Yes.
And you need to be vulnerable, right? So you need to put your hand up when you don't understand something, and that's everything from, structures of like, the way private equity works through, I guess, terminology sometimes, if you don't know it, you need to put your hand up and say, can you catch me up? Can you catch me up to speed? And I think that that's tricky because, when you're a founder of a startup, and you're just launching, you've got to, you just got to do it, right? And you've got to kind of you got to be making all the decisions. And you've got to go out confidently, and it's almost like a psychological process of kind of unpeeling that, kind of that shell of like, I can do everything, I know everything, But as you kind of grow and you kind of evolve and you kind of bring more people around you, and you get people who are really great at their jobs, way better at their jobs than you are at doing their jobs when they're up and running. Then it's time to sit back and listen and take that advice on. But it's also really important to understand as a CEO that the buck stops with you, right? And I also think it's really important to have an understanding of what that role means. And I think there's a couple of different ways that you can approach it. You can see the role of a CEO as being something that's showered upon you, and it's something that you wield power from. And I think that that's the wrong approach. It's a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And if you take it from that angle, then I think that that's, well, in my opinion, that's the best approach. And I kind of view it very much as kind of the company as a child, right? Not the people in the company, but the company itself, and the health of the company, and the growth of the company. And I think any good parent would recognize that, you put aside kind of your own ego, and your own kind of doubts, and you focus on the health of the company.
And how does that relationship with, inverted commas, the child work when you have private equity funding in the mix? How does that organize, and how does it get embodied in reality?
Well, I mean, look, for us anyway, at Accredit, when we decided that we wanted to go for funding, it was a situation whereby we were recognizing that the company was transitioning naturally from a startup company to a scale-up company.
Yes.
And, when we were launching the company, and you didn't have anybody launch the company, you kind of do what needs to be done, and people jump in, and you kind of just, you push the elephant through the keyhole. That's always what happens as well, continually. But our decision to bring on investment was, one for some growth capital, and one to kind of change a bit of the cap table, and bring on some new minds, and that came through the investors and the board. But it was to help the company grow, right?
Yes.
And help it to kind of proceed into kind of the next phase. So it was very much, with the growth and the maturity of the company in mind, that we decided to go down the route. And
so, does it still feel like your baby?
Yeah. I don't think any founder, regardless of, what position they're in and their growth, as long as they're still with the company, I don't know how you'd ever let that go.
Yeah, I that's certainly my experience too, by the way, both personally, but also observationally. The founder will always be the founder. And what's also, I think, really healthy to acknowledge the founding energy with which the business was formed. Say a bit around your energy and how you manage that.
I think it's pretty universal. I don't think I'd be surprising anybody within my company or investors or anything to say that I'm quite a high energy CEO. Okay. That's beneficial, I think, in some respects, in terms of kind of hopefully kind of giving some of that energy to the team, and kind of showing that as an example, and also getting things done as well. It can be detrimental as well. I mean, it's really important to try and ensure that energy is going in the right direction, and not turning into frantic, nervous energy. And that's a really big thing as well. And I know that there's a lot of talk, certainly in your world, and it's so true, just about balancing your own physical and mental health, and kind of really trying to have kind of that equilibrium in your life in order to kind of direct that energy in the right. And
how do you balance that? Where do you get that equilibrium from?
Well, I think that physical health is important. So, and again, I think having quite a bit of energy and sometimes nervous energy. That's a great way to kind of get it out. It's a funny thing where, it's the weird kind of dichotomy where you think, oh, if we go to the gym now and I do a workout, I'll be tired. It's not. You still have the energy, but you're more focused. So that's important. And then I also think that you finding something, on the creative side is very important as well. So I play music, I play some guitar, and that's a really great outlet for me as well. So it's kind of that left brain, right brain.
Yes.
If I get too analytical, I can just kind of float off into some jams and some noodling. So yeah,
amazing.
That's key as well.
Say a little bit around what you're preparing for, not just the what though. I'd also like you to say a bit about who are you being? Who are you preparing to be in this next phase?
Well, so we're kind of going through that transition. Well, I'm going through that transition. The company's going through that transition now, really. So we brought on our first institutional investment in April of last year. So we're just about 9 months into it. The difference between being a CEO, start CEO and founder CEO, that's just, backed by, some angel versus institutional is hugely different. And kind of coming back to that idea of kind of doing everything and kind of every decision, when you're up and running, and then being able to but also having to kind of release that is a really strange concept. And I know I've watched your podcast and videocast and interviews before as well, and I don't think this is the unique challenge for this transition. That element of kind of letting go and trusting kind of those people who have been brought onto their jobs is key and fundamental. I get the idea now, and what it means to be able to bring a lot of really smart, capable people into these positions that you kind of used to have to be very involved with, and having that trust is a big mindset shift, and it's a mentality shift as well. And what it really allows you to do is it allows you to do probably the most fundamentally important thing as a CEO, which is to stop looking down all the time.
Yes.
Look up.
Yes.
Right? And what that means is that, you're looking up and you're looking at what the industry is doing. You're looking at the movements in the space. You're trying to see, well, wait a minute, if that goes through and that happens, what are the trends we're looking at? And where does that put us as a company? What's the competition doing? What are our clients looking at doing? How's the space evolving? And what that allows you to do is to try and kind of work on strategies as to how the company will look, and how your staff will look, going forward, and kind of looking into the future. So it's a little bit of future gazing, really. There are books you can read about, transitioning to a CEO, whatever, but it's a very individual experience, and it's an individual experience with investors, and it's an individual experience with the industry you're in as well. So a lot of it is just working it out, on your own, and hopefully with some people that you can talk to who've had similar journeys, but it's an individual experience. So it's important to be able to look to other, I suppose, CEOs and who's kind of gone through the journey, and it's said all the time, but it's a lonely position, that sort of thing as well. I've joined an organization for private equity backed CEOs, Pep Talks, which is fantastic because it's all CEOs go through the same experience, which is fantastic. And I've got somehow in my life, it seems like I've got a bunch of kind of entrepreneur friends who've kind of gone on to kind of do various journeys as well. So kind of leaning on those friendships and kind of having those discussions as well. And now, so every now and again, I'm starting to get asked about my experience, which is
I want to kind of get underneath a few layers here for a second. Tell us about your biggest wobble so far, and how you navigated through that.
So I think imposter syndrome is a really real thing, right?
Right.
And I think that certainly in my experiences, the way my life has evolved, if I were to look back when I was 20 years old and said, for Peder, and 30 some years, you're going to be a CEO of a private equity backed technology company servicing, the global sports industry and major events, I'd been like, you're nuts, because I was studying English literature and philosophy, and I thought the internet was going to be the death of society. So I didn't train for this role. And so, to learn on the job, and then when things are kind of, feeling like they're spiraling or not going great, or whatever, you're thinking, what am I doing here? What right do I have to be here? Why should anyone listen to me? But then, the more people you kind of talk to and the more you kind of calm down a bit, you realize that, maybe there are some people who absolutely know what they're doing, but I've not met.
It's normal. So it's you're normalizing it.
So there's that element of that balance. The other thing is that the time devour of the job is extreme as well. So, the tendency is to just, blitz it and just work on it. And then, you'll get to your own life, next week, next month. And then that turns out to be next year. And then that turns out to be in 3 years' time. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is you need to realize that that day will never come unless it's, unless you start on that immediately. So balancing out time with family and friends is, again, really, really important as well, because otherwise I think you'll end up, at the end of your life alone, and you just wonder what it's all for. So
was there a moment where there was a catalyst moment that brought that front and center, and then you've put into play some of the things that you're alluding to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I went through a split up from my ex about 7 years ago or so, and I've got two daughters over here in the UK that were still in school and younger. And it was a situation about, wait a minute, I need to ensure that I'm a part of their lives and also they're a part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I really need to focus on that. So that was a moment when I went to my business partners as well, and I said, look, I'm all here when I'm all here, but also when I'm with the kids. Like, if the house is burning down, call me.
Yes.
But I do need that time to be able to dedicate to those relationships and ensure that that's a solid part of my life as well.
Wonderful. It's setting, it sounds like setting some boundaries in place that feel doable.
Yeah.
I did say I wanted to go into two different directions. If I can take another second. If I was speaking to some of your folks, your people, your employees, not your immediate team that clearly you spend a lot of time with, but somebody slightly further removed, how would they describe you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I hope that they would. I hope that they would say that that I do bring positive energy to the business. I hope that they'd say that that I'm genuine, and that what we're trying to do with the business is the right thing as well. We are going through a challenge right now, of kind of, having the company growing big and all around the world. So, the company's grown really big, and, I think it's just like getting old. Nobody gets old in a day, right? You're young, and then you're maybe a little bit less young, and then all of a sudden you look in the mirror and you think, well, wait a minute, who's this guy looking back at me? But I think that, it's a situation whereby when you're starting off and there's 4 or 5 of you in the room and you're all in the same room, the core values of what you're doing, the reason you're doing it, what you're trying to set out to achieve is spoken about all the time, every day, and it's just ingrained. And then you hire your next person, your next few people, whatever, and that's just kind of ingrained as well. And then eventually I think it starts to slip. Right. And so one of the things that we're going through right now and spending a lot of time on is really kind of putting together our first kind of proper company strategy document, which lays out all of these thoughts that we've got in our head and the way that we've been operating, and putting it down on paper so that we can share that as well. So, that's going to be coming online in the next month or two. And that's going to be an opportunity for us to kind of spread that out and share that with the company. But it was one of those things where we just had this realization. It's like, wait a minute, like maybe everyone doesn't get what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we're not kind of all in the same room, and we're not, we're bigger now. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd hope that they think I'm trying.
So my final question then, what would be your counsel to someone who's taking a similar path to you? So they're in the founding seat, CEO seat, and potentially thinking about getting funding. What would be your counsel?
Right. So, some of the things I've talked about already is about that balance element, about being uncomfortable, about learning, constantly moving in that direction. And then also really think about it, right? Really think about what you want to do and what you want the business to do and what you want to be doing personally. I mean, there's no problem with having a lifestyle business, right? And just like having something that's, that cruises along and everyone's happy. I've never been the sort of person who can sit still. It's always been about growth. But then if you take that route, you've also got to understand that being in this role and peace and contentness and they don't really necessarily go hand in hand with the role. There's a key element of the role that I'm in, and that's the critical eye. And so you've always got to be looking for danger, and you've always got to be looking at things that might, wipe you out.
Yes.
And might affect you. You've got to be looking at competition. You got to be looking at, market movements, everything else. And the things that really bother you and the things that are in your head. And that's a key part of it. And that's just not conducive to that whole piece. You've got to understand the journey that you're on.
Make a conscious choice. I'm hearing that.
You have to make a conscious choice. And if you decide to do that, people get investment for two reasons, and we've got investment for the right reasons. Well, but I take that back. They're both right reasons, but ours wasn't a bailout. Ours wasn't, we're out of cash. Ours was a proactive thing because we were seeing the transitions in the business, and we wanted to take it further with the, with the growth capital, but then also with new people around us. If you decide to go down that route, choose your investors very, very, very carefully. Mm-hmm. Our investors are fantastic, absolutely brilliant. They've been amazing to work with. They've understood what we know, what we don't know. They've been incredibly helpful. I think we must have met 35 different private equity houses. Yeah. Initial chats, and we're presenting them, but it's very much early dating, that sort of thing. Dating initially. And there were some it's like you're getting along with, and there were some which, you just kind of knew straight away that, that it wasn't really going to work being in a room working with them. It's just, there wasn't a connection. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, and they clearly, these who weren't right for us were clearly great for other organizations. Yeah. So it's an understanding of what I think you as an individual can work with, and also an understanding of what the company will work with. And yes. And so it's just incredibly important to choose wisely. Yeah.
What I love about what you just said there is there's a sense of trusting your gut and your sense of how will the chemistry be? Yeah. Because if the chemistry is not right, the logic brains aren't enough.
That's right.
And the expertise won't be enough in of itself. And I love the fact it needs to be the combination. Yeah. And sometimes that can get lost in that decision making, which can be over logical. But I hear you're very, very attuned to that.
I mean, look, the thing is as well, Tess, is that nothing in the company works if the people aren't there, right? Clearly, right? And part of that as well is that you've got to understand the culture that the company runs on, and that you're behind, and the core values and everything else, and that really needs to align, because what you can't have is one day everything's running the way that you've run, and so it's good, and then all of a sudden you get investments in 180. I mean, one of the things that we're adamant about with Accredit is that we're adamant about the people that work for Accredit being who they are, right? Yeah. Individuals, right? Certainly in our space, there's never an event. There's never a day out of the entire year that's some major events not happening that's running our platform around the world. So the dedication that our team put in is just absolutely incredible. But you can't say, give me all of that dedication, and by the way, don't be you, right? It's just ridiculous. It's horribly unethical as well, because then you're just wasting a lot of your waking life, not living your life. And then from that, one of the great, incredible byproducts is that, when you push that forward, you ensure that that's part of the core values of the business, then you get people making decisions and from themselves, right? From their core outward, which is, unfiltered and, real, creative and unique ideas and thoughts and decisions. And you're not kind of forcing everybody into cookie cutter mentality. And then that's when the magic happens, right? And then that's when the great things happen, the great ideas happen, and then it also creates joy, and creates some fun as well. So,
wow. Yeah, well, that feels like a perfect place to pause. Thank you so much for being willing to share and being with me. I'm delighted to have you alongside me.
Well, thank you, Tess. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.